I want you to give a good tabernacle welcome. Bill and Annette, come on up.
Yes, Bill and I had gone to sleep that evening, November 22nd, and we had come from a friend's home. It was a prayer meeting, a weekly prayer meeting we attended every Sunday night. Nothing unusual. Went to bed about 11:30 or so. And I awoke. I was in my bed, and it was 3:23 in the morning when I woke up. And I do know that because the first thing I did when I heard screams coming from our living room is I saw the digital clock to my left, and I turned and I saw it was 3:23 in the morning. And I proceeded down our living room hallway, and I found my husband in a state that anyone who knows him would know he's completely out of character. He was traumatized, holding his hands to his temple and crying out in terror, saying, pray for me, the Lord has taken me to hell. So this is not like my husband's nature. As he says, he's conservative. Anyone who knows him, he's steady as he goes. That's his personality. And so I first, of course, was in shock, but at the same time, I had relief that he wasn't having a medical emergency, and I proceeded to pray. And thankfully, the Lord removed the terror from his mind after a time of praying, but he left the memory so Bill could share it with people. And one of the first things he asked for was a glass of water, and I got that for him, and then he calmed down and told me that evening what happened. And I'm going to let him take you on a journey right now.
Thanks, gorgeous. We went to a prayer meeting like we did every Sunday night, and we returned from the prayer meeting, went to bed like any other normal night, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I knew it was 3 o'clock. For some reason, I can't explain to you why I knew it was 3, but the Lord picked me up and took me out of my body and dropped me off in a prison cell in hell. And there was no explanation at all until the return. And so I found myself in a prison cell, just like you would imagine a prison cell to be, with rough-hewn stone walls and bars on the doors. And it was light for only about a minute, so I could see to describe to you what I saw. And then it resumed its normal state of darkness. But the first thing I noticed in this cell was the heat, the tremendous heat. I wondered immediately, why am I alive in this heat? It was way far beyond the ability for my body to live, but yet I was alive. And it was terrible, horrible heat. I don't know what the temperature was, but it was way beyond, I should have died. And I noticed that I was lying on the floor, and I had absolutely no strength in my body, completely void of any kind of strength. I could barely move. I looked up, and I saw these two creatures in the cell. There were two of these creatures. Now, I didn't know what they were at first, and because I went there as an unsaved person would be. The Lord withheld it from my mind that I was a Christian. He blocked it from my mind, which there's lots of scriptures, but just to give you three, the Lord can do anything, but to give you a scriptural reference, in 2 Kings 4:27 and Daniel 4:34 and I think in Luke 18:34 it talks about where the Lord can hide something from someone's mind. And I don't have time to go through each one. I'd love to go through the scriptures each one at a time with you because that's the important thing to believe, but we just don't have the time. But anyway, so to give scriptural basis for that. So he blocked it from my mind and explained to me why on the way back, which I'll get to in a minute. But I'll just tell you now, the reason he blocked it from my mind, see, if I would have been there as a Christian, then I would have had hope. And I would have been able to cry out and say, God's getting me out of here. Well, he wanted me to experience what they feel there. And that they'll never get out. They're hopelessly lost, and they'll never get out. You see, and that's what he wanted me to experience, so he blocked that from my mind. So I didn't know what these creatures were. I wasn't there as a Christian to observe, that's a fallen angel or a demon. I didn't realize what they were. They were just enormous creatures. And I noticed, the size of this thing, first of all. And this might sound like a colorful exaggeration, but this one was about 13 feet tall. And to give you some scriptural basis for that again, in Genesis 6:4, it talks about where the sons of God came and had relations with women. Well, most of the commentators believe that the sons of God refers to the fallen angels. So the fallen angels came down, had relations with women, and produced giants in the earth in those days. And then in Deuteronomy 3:11 talks about the giant, one of his bedstead was made of iron and was 9 cubits in length. Now, cubit is 1.5 feet, so it's about 13.5 feet long for the bedstead of the giant. So the giants in the earth came as a result of fallen angels having relations with women. Okay, so fallen angels are in hell. That's what fallen angels or demons, call them what you want. There may be some differences, but that's too technical to get into. But so this creature was about 13 feet tall. Okay, so you can look on the wall. The pastor had it drawn on the wall. That's how big 13 feet is. So to give you an idea, bring it into perspective, just gigantic thing. And it was all reptilish, scaly, bumps all over its body, really grotesque and just horrifying to look at. But again, maybe if we can show that picture, you'll get a better, if the pastor can show the picture on the wall here of what this one looked like.
And while they're getting it set up, we need also the house lights, leave the wall lights on and all the platform lights off to look at this to get a better picture, Don. And while they're doing that, tell them how this picture came about and how that through...
Okay. We're going to see a video in a little bit. We put together a 3-minute video, Mary Kay Baxter and myself, who was another lady that had experienced hell. And in the video, one of the clips came from Kenneth Hagin giving his testimony to Joel Osteen's church. They did a video, and he described the demon that he saw. Well, strangely enough, it was exactly like the one I saw. So I don't know how whoever drew it depicted it to be so exact, but this is exactly the one of the ones I saw in hell. So it's from Kenneth Hagin's testimony, and that's where it came from. So I've been trying to show it to people to give them an idea.
Tell them what you told me, that when you first saw this video, it just blew you away. He said, I went back and forth and looked at it 20, 30 times. And I told my wife, I can't believe that image on that video is the exact demon that I saw. And you said...
Right, it was exactly. And it only shows him from about here up. I saw the whole body. So, this doesn't show the whole body, but I just was amazed. I kept playing it back thinking, how in the world they get it so exact? I wanted to contact Kenneth Hagin, but, I couldn't. So, anyway, I don't know how they got it so exact, but this really is a good representation of what they look like. Now, they're all different sizes, shapes, or small ones, which I'll talk about, but this particular one is huge, and it's ferocious. It's not just that it's big. It's ferocious, and it hates you, and it's powerful, and it was pacing in this cell like a caged bull, and ready to pounce and tear me to shreds. Okay, so if you can imagine the most wild beast animal you can picture, well, this is far worse than that. So with the size and with its nature, it was terrifying. I was just absolutely terrified. Yeah, so its head, it's hard to tell, but its head is probably this wide. So it's just an enormous head with huge teeth. It had claws about 1 foot long. It's foot-long claws on it. It was totally out of proportion, no symmetry to it. One ear big, one ear small, one arm long, one arm short, 1 foot big, one small, no symmetry to just deformed, twisted, grotesque creature. And it paced around this cage, and it was conversing with another demon in the cage. The other one looked different than this. The other one had razor-sharp fins all over its body and was thinner. This one was real stout and powerful looking, real wide like that picture on the wall, real wide like that, and big. So you can imagine, look how small I am compared to that. Any of us would be small compared to that. But that's what they look like. We'll see it more on the video we show for the 3-minute clip.
Okay. Let's bring the house lights up, turn this off, and get the video ready for later, okay? All the lights on. Thank you.
It just helps having a visual, so it's hard for me to describe what they look like. But anyway, as far as the stench from this thing was terrible. Absolutely the most foul, putrid smell you could ever imagine. But besides that, in hell, there's a smell of sulfur, burning sulfur, which you can't breathe. And, if you've been to Hawaii, which I haven't, but they talk about if you go see the volcano, you can't go past a certain point because the fumes from the volcanic ash and so forth is from the sulfur, and it will kill you. It's toxic. Well, that's what you have to breathe in hell. It's toxic air. So you should die from breathing. But yet you keep living. And you don't want to breathe because you feel it's going to kill me. I'm going to die any second. But again, you keep on going. And besides that, there's not enough air to breathe. So you don't have enough air. It's not like you can take a breath, deep breath like here. It's hardly any air at all. So each breath I took, I had to breathe like this. It was like, just like that. Barely could get any. So you're going to die any second from not enough air. But you keep going. So another one of these things you have to endure in hell. And you have to endure, like I said, the heat and the fear. You know, Psalm 73:18 talks about, you cast them down into destruction where they're utterly consumed with terrors. And you are consumed with terrors. You know, lying on the floor, being helpless, I had no strength in my body. But even if I did, I couldn't have fought off that thing anyway. But still, you feel like you'd want to have some kind of strength, and you don't. You're void of all strength. And to give just a couple scriptures, I want to back up and give you a few scriptures because that's what's important to me. In Isaiah 24:22, it says, they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit and shall be shut up in the prison. So he's talking about prison cells. Proverbs 7:27 talks about going down to hell to the chambers of death. And the word chamber means inner rooms. And the bars, Jonah 2:6 talks about the earth with her bars was about me forever. Yet thou hast brought up my life from corruption. And most of the commentators, the Tyndale Old Testament and the New International and some others, believe that Jonah did experience, he went to Sheol. He was right on the outside of hell. Or some believe he was inside the gate. So there is somebody in the Bible that did experience hell, Jonah. And he said in Jonah 2:2, in hell I cried out. So he's someone that experienced hell. And he talks about the bars of hell. And Job 17:16 talks about they shall go down to the bars of the pit. And it's talking about actual metal bars. So, you know, scriptures to support that. No strength is talked about in Isaiah 14:9, talks about hell from beneath is moved to meet thee at thy coming. They will say, art thou become weak as we? And the word weak is the same word in Judges 16:7 where Samson lost his strength when his hair was cut off. He became weak. And Psalms 88:4 talks about, I am counted with them that go down into the pit. I am as a man that has no strength. Anyway, I could give you scripture for every point all the way through like this, which I love to do. But it just detracts from me telling the story. So I'll just have to make reference to a few of them. We put all of them in the book, and that's what I wanted to, was the important thing to have in the book is the scripture. These creatures were blaspheming God. They were cursing God. And I understood what they were saying. I don't know what language it was, but I could understand them. And they had a hatred for God. And they turned their attention towards me and had that same hatred for me. And I wondered, what have I done to them? But they had this extreme hatred. And so that big one that you saw picked me up and grabbed me and threw me into the wall, you know, like I weighed nothing. And I felt my bones break. And you have a body in hell. Matthew 10:28 says, fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. And there's a lot of other scriptures I could give you. But anyway, I felt the bones break. I felt pain. But the pain was masked somehow. I knew it was blocked, that I didn't feel all of it. And God blocked most of the pain. He let me feel a little bit of the pain just to be able to relate to people that you do feel pain in hell. It's not allegorical, metaphorical. It's real pain. And so I felt the bones break. I fell on the floor. And the other one with those razor sharp fins all over its body picked me up and grabbed me from behind like a rag doll. And it just dug its claws into my chest and just tore open my flesh. Ripped it right open. And I looked and I felt the pain again, and I noticed there was no blood or water. But, you know, there's a lot of scriptures where there's no blood in hell and no water in hell. And I noticed that I was completely my body was destroyed. My wife and I like to work out, take care of ourselves, and eat right. And, you know, it didn't matter now. Body was just absolutely destroyed. But I wondered, why wasn't I dead? What's wrong with me? How come I can't die? But you can't. You keep surviving. Each one of these things you survive. And I noticed that, the stench should have killed me. I couldn't believe how bad the smell was. I went to crawl out of the cell, and apparently they let me. About then it went dark. And so I believe the Lord's presence left, and it resumed its normal state. Because without the Lord there, it would have been dark, totally dark, and I wouldn't have been able to see anything, so I couldn't describe it to you. So when I got out of the cell, it was absolutely pitch black, like a darkness which was beyond any darkness you could imagine. And I've been in some coal mines in Arizona and so forth, where it's way down deep dark. This was different than that. It was an evil presence about the darkness, an eeriness. Exodus 10:21 talks about a darkness which may be felt. You could feel the darkness, and it was evil. Again, enough to terrify you, and just the fear should kill you, but you keep living. I looked to the right, and I could see just a little bit, because there were flames shooting high in the sky that was about 10 miles away from me. I knew it was 10 miles away. I don't know how I knew, but again, there's certain things you know in hell. Your senses are keener. You have a little better understanding than you would here. And even Erwin Lutzer, one of the scholars of today, who wrote a book, 1 Minute After You Die, he even said those in Sheol have heightened perceptions and a better understanding. And he's a scholar. I don't know how he determined that, but it's true, you do. So I knew that the flames were about 10 miles away, and it lit up the skyline just a little bit. Not like it would be here, because it was a mile across. This pit of fire was 1 mile across, so that's a lot of fire. It would light up the whole area if it was here on earth. But down deep in the earth, the light did not travel. So I could just see barely, and it was all desolate, barren wasteland. Nothing. No greenery, not one green thing. Just rock, barren, desolate. And there's scripture for all that. Isaiah 59:10 talks about we are in desolate places as dead men. And so one of these creatures grabbed me and dragged me back into the cell. And this one began to crush my head, and it just crushed my head flat. Now, how would I live with my head flattened? I don't know. I don't know if it resumed or what, but I felt my head get crushed. And again, I know the pain was masked. It was blocked. It would have been way worse than what I felt, but the Lord allowed me to feel some of it, to explain to people that there is pain. But anyway, they